You're giving too much away. That's the problem. You don't even realize it, but every time you speak on what you're about to do, every time you open up about your plans, your goals, your next move, you're diluting your power. You're sharing energy that hasn't even had time to manifest. You're leaking momentum before it becomes something solid. You want people to know you're working. You want people to understand your vision. You want people to believe in you before the result is even built. And that's why you keep losing. That's why you start things with fire and finish them in silence. Not because you're not capable, but because you let the world inside too early. You need to understand something. Silence isn't weakness. It's not shyness. It's not a lack of confidence. Silence is strategy. It's leverage. It's how real builders move. Because when you're building something that actually matters, the last thing you need is noise. The last thing you need is judgment, expectation, distraction. The mission doesn't need to be posted. It needs to be protected. There's a reason why lions hunt in silence. There's a reason why the most dangerous moves happen quietly. Because power, real power, never announces itself. It just shows up, fully formed, undeniable, impossible to ignore. And by then, it's already too late for the doubters to do anything about it. So if you're serious about becoming that person, disciplined, focused, calculated, then this mindset shift is not optional. It's required. This is your warning. If you keep opening up too early, if you keep letting people into a process they haven't earned the right to witness, you will continue to suffer. Your growth will be public, your failure will be predictable, and your potential will stay exactly that, just potential. But if you learn to lock in, to go dark, to let your silence do the talking until your results break the noise, you become untouchable. Let's begin. Silence protects progress. When you're building something important, whether it's a vision, a mindset, a career, or your body, silence becomes your strongest ally. Noise is cheap. Everyone is talking. Everyone is posting. Everyone is announcing things they haven't even done yet. And they wonder why they feel stuck. Because they don't realize that every time they open their mouth, they're giving away something that should have stayed within. Silence is not weakness. It's not passiveness. It's the highest form of control. You move in silence because you're not seeking applause. You move in silence because you don't need confirmation. You move in silence because the mission is too important to let it be polluted by the noise of weak minds. The truth is, when you speak too soon about your plans, you give the world the ability to judge, critique, and inject doubt into your vision. The moment you announce what you're working on, everyone has something to say. Friends will smile, but secretly question you. Strangers will laugh behind screens. Family will suggest you be more realistic. And worst of all, you start internalizing that doubt. Now, instead of focusing on execution, you're subconsciously trying to prove something. That pressure corrupts the purity of your goal. What started as something meaningful and powerful becomes tainted by outside expectation. You stay silent not because you're afraid of failure, but because you respect the process. It's sacred. People love to talk about potential. Potential means nothing if it isn't protected. The louder you are, the more people know how to target you. They start studying your moves, copying them, undermining them, or even worse, trying to become part of them just to ruin them from the inside. You need to understand something about this world. Not everyone around you wants to see you win. Some people are waiting for your vulnerability just so they can weaponize it. Silence is a filter. It keeps the wrong people out. It keeps your energy focused. It keeps your direction clean. The greatest transformations don't happen in the spotlight. They happen in isolation. The gym at 5 a.m., the notebook nobody sees, the business idea you don't tell anyone about, the days where you grind without a single post, without a single update, just you versus your old self. You don't need to explain that process to anyone. You don't need to justify your quiet phase. Because when it's time to reveal the results, they'll be undeniable. And by that time, it won't matter what anyone thinks. Some of you are stuck because you've been announcing goals that require discipline to people who've never had discipline a day in their life. And when they question your path, you doubt yourself. Not because they're right, but because you gave them access to something they didn't deserve. You talked when you should have been grinding. You explained when you should have been executing. You gave the enemy your blueprint, and now you're wondering why you keep getting ambushed. It's simple. You opened the door before you locked it from the inside. Real ones don't post progress. They post results. They don't scream about what they're doing. They let success do that for them. Because progress, when nurtured in silence, grows faster. It's not slowed down by ego, distraction, or judgment. It's pure, focused, dangerous. And when it shows up, it shocks everyone who thought you were doing nothing. Not everyone deserves access to your mind. You have to start treating your mind like it's a fortress, not a hallway. Not everyone gets to walk in. Not everyone gets to sit down and stay. Your thoughts, your ideas, your ambitions, they're not for everyone to hear. Some people aren't even capable of understanding them. And that's not arrogance, that's facts. Most people think small, they live in boxes. Their mindset hasn't moved past comfort. So when you share big visions with small minds, they reject it. Not because it's wrong, but because it scares them. It reminds them of what they're not doing. And so they attack it. Every time you open your mind to someone who hasn't earned that privilege, you give away energy that could have been used to build. You let them plant seeds of doubt, fear, second guessing. And the worst part is it's subtle. It's not always hate. Sometimes it's masked as concern. Are you sure that's a good idea? You think you can really pull that off? Maybe you should take the safer route. They're not being helpful. They're being limited. But you won't realize that if you keep mistaking access for support. Just because someone is close doesn't mean they deserve your thoughts. Proximity doesn't equal loyalty. Just because they've known you for years doesn't mean they understand where you're headed now. The more selective you are with who you allow into your mental space, the sharper your focus becomes. You stop wasting time explaining yourself. You stop waiting for people to understand your moves. You start building for yourself. You start thinking clearly. You start moving with purpose. And when people do ask what you're up to, you smile, not because you're hiding something, but because they're not ready for it. They don't need to be. Your mind is not a group project. It's not for discussion. It's for execution. There are people walking around carrying 10 different opinions from people who've never done anything with their life. They're confused, lost, overwhelmed, not because they're weak, but because they opened their mind to everyone. They made their thoughts public domain. They let their vision become a democracy, and in the process they lost themselves. Control your environment by controlling who gets access. If someone hasn't done the work, if they don't respect the grind, if they don't bring clarity, why are you giving them the privilege of knowing your mindset? Would you hand your house keys to a stranger? Then why would you hand your future to someone who hasn't earned your trust? Every conversation you have either sharpens your blade or dulls it. Choose wisely, because the wrong input from the wrong person at the wrong time can derail a plan that took you years to create. You're not obligated to explain yourself. You're not required to be understood. The people who are meant to walk with you will align without needing a blueprint. The rest, let them stay outside. Your mind is a kingdom. Guard it like one.
Oversharing invites manipulation. People think being open means being real. They think telling everyone everything builds trust, builds connection, builds respect. But what it really builds is vulnerability in the wrong direction. Oversharing isn't strength, it's handing someone the map to your weak spots and trusting they won't use it against you. That's not trust, that's desperation disguised as authenticity. You want people to understand you so badly that you give away pieces of yourself before they've earned it. You talk about your trauma, your doubts, your insecurities, your mistakes, and you assume they'll handle it with care. But people don't always handle truth with care. Most people aren't even responsible with their own thoughts, let alone yours. You say too much and now they know exactly how to break you. They know which buttons to press when they feel threatened. They know what to say when they want to undermine you. They've watched your unfiltered moments and stored them like ammunition. And the next time you disagree with them, or pull back or succeed past them, they'll use your own words to slice through your confidence. That's how the game works. It's not always loud, it's subtle. Quiet manipulation through fake empathy. They'll pretend to listen, they'll nod, they'll say that must be hard, and meanwhile they're gathering power. Not because they want to help, but because they want to control. You think you're building closeness by being transparent, but in reality you're just shrinking your power. There's a difference between being real and being reckless. There's a difference between emotional intelligence and emotional exposure. Just because someone's asking questions doesn't mean they deserve answers. Just because someone is curious doesn't mean they're coming from a place of care. Curiosity can be toxic when it's mixed with jealousy, envy, or weakness. Most people want access so they can compare, so they can feel less insecure by knowing you're not as strong as you look. They love to see cracks, not because they want to heal them, but because it makes them feel whole. When you hold back, when you stay quiet, when you choose not to spill every thought the moment you feel it, you keep control, you keep leverage, you keep a part of you that they can't touch. And that part of you is what gives you clarity. Because the more you explain yourself, the more you dilute your own message. You start editing your truth based on how they might react. You start changing your voice to sound more palatable. And in doing that, you lose the rawness that made you powerful in the first place. Real growth doesn't need to be broadcasted. Real pain doesn't need an audience. Real lessons don't need validation. You grow in silence, you learn in solitude, and when the time comes to speak, you speak with experience, not emotion. You speak when the foundation is strong, not when it's still under construction. You protect your process because it's sacred. You protect your thoughts because they shape your life. And you protect your vulnerability because it's not for everyone. It's for the very few who have proven themselves worthy of it. You want to know who deserves to hear your pain? Look at how they treat silence. Look at what they do when you say nothing. Do they press harder? Do they get frustrated? Do they start creating narratives? Or do they stay grounded, patient, focused on their own path? People who need constant access to you aren't trying to connect, they're trying to control. And the moment you stop talking, they start panicking. That tells you everything. Oversharing is an open invitation for manipulation. You don't owe the world your scars just to prove you've survived. You don't need to bleed to be seen. The more mysterious you are, the more untouchable you become. Let them guess, let them wonder, let them misunderstand, because the people who really matter won't need the full story to respect you. And the ones who need the story probably don't have your best interest in mind anyway. Power comes from privacy. There's a reason the most dangerous people are quiet. There's a reason the most respected leaders, the most effective warriors, the most powerful thinkers, they all operate from behind the scenes. Because when no one knows what you're doing, they can't stop you. When no one knows what you're thinking, they can't manipulate you. And when no one knows how you feel, they can't use it against you. Privacy isn't about secrecy, it's about ownership. It's about taking full control over your own narrative without external interference. You move in private because you know the moment you make your journey public, it's no longer yours. It becomes a spectacle, a debate, a discussion. People start adding opinions you didn't ask for. They start projecting their fears onto your dreams. And if you're not solid, you start listening. You start questioning yourself. You start adapting your pace to fit someone else's comfort zone. And just like that, your momentum dies. Not because you weren't capable, but because you let people into a space that was only meant for you. Privacy gives you room to think clearly, to fail without judgment, to try things without eyes on you, to evolve without expectation.
You become more dangerous because no one can predict your next move. You're not showing your playbook. You're not posting every milestone. You're not explaining every decision. You're just building quietly, consistently, without interruption. And when the final result shows up, it looks sudden, but you know it wasn't. You know the hours, you know the pain, you know the silence that made it possible. People underestimate the weight of being visible. The moment you make your moves public, you become accountable, not just to your own goals, but to other people's perceptions. That pressure ruins clarity. You start adjusting your process to get applause instead of results. You start performing instead of progressing. You chase dopamine instead of discipline. And before you know it, you're addicted to being seen, not to being successful. The real ones understand that privacy isn't hiding, it's focusing. It's protecting your energy. It's giving yourself the space to grow without noise. Think about it. How many people failed not because they lacked skill, but because they spoke too soon? How many people sabotaged themselves by letting too many opinions in? Privacy isn't isolation, it's preparation. You isolate to strengthen. You close the door, not because you're scared, but because what's behind that door is too valuable to leave exposed. You don't need to announce your grind. You don't need to document every struggle. You don't need to share your vision before it's ready. Some things are meant to be built in silence. Some victories are meant to be enjoyed in solitude. Some breakthroughs are meant to be protected until they're unbreakable. And if you really want to move with power, stop thinking of privacy as something you give up when you get successful. Think of it as the reason you got successful in the first place. Power doesn't come from proving yourself, it comes from knowing yourself so deeply that you don't need to be understood. You don't need to be praised. You don't need to be validated. You just move, you operate, you build, you conquer. And by the time the world realizes what you've done, it's already too late to stop you.
Emotional discipline is a weapon. There's a difference between feeling and reacting. Everyone feels. That's human. But not everyone controls what they do with those feelings. Emotional discipline is what separates men who break under pressure from those who rise through it. It's what turns chaos into strategy, pain into fuel, doubt into dominance. And it doesn't come from just reading books or listening to motivational quotes. It comes from being in dark moments where your emotions scream louder than logic and still choosing not to fold. You train it like a muscle. You face a storm, and instead of crying for shelter, you stare it down and walk through it without flinching. The world doesn't care about how you feel, it cares about what you do. If you're angry, bitter, heartbroken, stressed, confused, fine. But none of that justifies weakness in your response. You don't get extra points for emotional chaos. You get respect for emotional control, real control. The type where no one can tell what you're thinking, even when everything inside you is burning. That's not suppression, that's mastery. You can acknowledge pain without being owned by it. You can experience fear and still take action. That is power. That's what makes men dangerous, not physical strength, but mental stability under fire. Most people are slaves to their feelings. If they feel motivated, they work. If they feel tired, they stop. If they feel disrespected, they explode. If they feel sad, they collapse. That's not strength, that's being owned. You want freedom, get control of your emotions. Because until you do, everything controls you. The girl who left, the business partner who betrayed you, the friend who lied, the money you lost, the rejection you felt. All of it becomes a puppet master pulling strings inside you unless you cut them off with discipline. You don't talk too much when you're emotional. You don't make decisions when you're angry. You don't post online when your head's not clear. You don't run to friends looking for pity. You take the pain and hold it. You don't show it. You don't feed it. You observe it like a scientist, not indulge in it like a child. That's how you stay dangerous in a world full of emotionally impulsive people. You become the calm in the chaos. You become the man who sees everything, feels everything, but acts with precision, not panic. Emotional discipline is why the most powerful people say less and do more, why they're never flustered, why they don't get pulled into drama, arguments, or pettiness, because they've detached their identity from how they feel in the moment. They're not their anger, they're not their sadness, they're not their stress. They're observers of those feelings, not slaves to them. And in that detachment lies a weapon that no one can take from you. You can walk into a room full of chaos and never lose your balance. You can face betrayal and still keep moving. You can hear criticism and not blink, because your emotions don't drive you. Your mission does. If you want to lead, if you want to win, if you want to outlast everyone else in the game, you need to be emotionally lethal, not because you're cold, but because you're focused. You keep your power by refusing to hand it over to temporary feelings. You train yourself to smile through attacks, stay calm in disrespect, and move like a ghost through noise. That's how warriors win. That's how leaders conquer. That's how men become untouchable, not through reaction, but through restraint. Validation is a trap. The second you start craving validation is the second you start giving away control. You begin living for claps instead of progress. You start measuring your worth by how many people approve, not how far you've come. And that mindset kills more dreams than failure ever will. Because now you're no longer working for the mission. You're working for the reaction. And when the reaction isn't there, your drive dies. That's not purpose. That's addiction.
You're addicted to attention. You're addicted to being seen. And in that addiction, you lose the very power that could have made you unstoppable. Validation is a game designed to keep you chasing. You do something good, people like it, they cheer you on, and suddenly your brain links progress with praise. Now you can't move unless someone's watching. Now you won't take action unless you get recognition. Now every step becomes a performance. You dress to impress. You speak to be liked. You post to be validated. And when people stop clapping, you start questioning your worth. That's slavery. That's not ambition, it's dependence. And no man who's truly free depends on others to feel valuable. Real growth happens in the shadows. Real work is invisible. The gym when no one's watching. The study sessions with no applause. The late nights, the silent progress, the pain that no one sees. That's where greatness is born. And none of that requires validation. In fact, the more you detach from it, the more powerful you become. Because now you're dangerous. Now you're moving regardless. Now you're focused not on being seen, but on being undeniable. Most people you're trying to impress don't even respect themselves. And yet you're bending your life trying to win their approval. You wear what they like, you do what they expect, you hold back your ambition to make them comfortable. You downplay your greatness to avoid judgment. All of that for what? Likes, compliments, shallow praise from people who disappear the moment you stop performing? That's not connection. That's performance anxiety disguised as relationships. Validation should come from within, from your discipline, from the effort you put in, from the way you handle failure, from the mindset you've built when no one was there to clap for you. That's real self-worth. That's the type of confidence that doesn't waver when people go silent, because you're not chasing acceptance. You're grounded in purpose. You don't need anyone to approve your journey because you know exactly where you're headed. You need to be the kind of person who keeps working when the spotlight turns off, who keeps pushing when nobody texts, nobody calls, nobody notices. That's the zone where real progress lives, where only you can see how far you've come. That's where your confidence gets built, far away from the noise, far away from the praise. And once you taste that internal strength, you'll never need validation again. You'll see it for what it is, a trap, a game, a leash, and you'll walk away from it because you've outgrown it. You don't need to be liked. You need to be respected. And respect doesn't come from pleasing people. It comes from staying true to your path. No matter who claps, no matter who supports, no matter who doubts, you weren't built for everyone to understand you. You were built to do what few are willing to do. Validation is for those who need permission. You're past that. You don't need permission. You don't need praise. You don't need applause. You need clarity, consistency, and absolute tunnel vision on your purpose. Everything else is just noise.
Let actions reveal, not words. Words are easy. Everyone has them. Everyone can say they're grinding. Everyone can say they're focused. Everyone can say they're building something. But words don't change lives. Words don't create legacy. Words don't earn respect. What earns respect is execution. What speaks louder than any caption, any motivational quote, any promise is action. Real, raw, undeniable movement that cannot be debated, cannot be doubted, and cannot be faked. The problem is most people fall in love with talking. They fall in love with the attention that comes with announcement. But talking too much is like spending money you haven't earned. It looks good in the moment, but eventually exposes you. You say you're going to the gym every day, then prove it by becoming unrecognizable in 6 months. You say you're building a business, then let the results show when your income multiplies. You say you're not the same person you used to be, then show it through your discipline, your habits, your energy. You don't need to scream your transformation. The ones who really change are the quiet ones, the ones so locked in they forget to explain, the ones who vanish from the crowd only to return so elevated, people wonder if they even knew them at all. That's real growth. It's not broadcasted, it's felt. When you speak too soon, you give people permission to judge a seed before it becomes a tree. You let them look at your dream in its infancy and criticize it like it's the final product. And when their doubt hits, you begin to shrink. Not because you're weak, but because you let your words fly before your work could walk. Your job is not to convince people. It's to build something so solid they have no choice but to believe. Talking is cheap, silence plus consistency is expensive. That's why so few do it. It takes patience. It takes restraint. It takes a level of self-belief that doesn't need instant gratification. Every time you explain yourself, every time you justify your plans, every time you try to get people to understand your grind, you're spending energy that should have gone into the grind itself. You're giving away pieces of the storm before it's strong enough to roar on its own. You don't need to do that. Keep building. Let the success slap them in the face without warning. Let them find out the hard way. You don't owe previews. You don't owe updates. You owe execution. You owe yourself the satisfaction of walking into a room full of people who doubted you and saying nothing because your presence does all the talking. The more you let action lead, the more your name grows without you forcing it. Because people respect what they can see, not what they hear. You can inspire thousands with one disciplined year of silence more than you ever could with 100 speeches. Discipline is magnetic. Focus is rare. And when people see it, they remember it. But only if you let your performance do the talking. Keep your mouth closed. Keep your head down. Keep working like no one is watching.
because that's when greatness is born, in the quiet, behind the scenes, when the only person clapping for you is you. Guard your ambition from small minds. Ambition is rare. It's raw, it's aggressive, it's powerful, and when you carry that kind of fire inside you, you become a target for people who've let theirs die. Small minds don't attack you because of what you've done. They attack you because of what you represent. You represent what they could have been if they didn't settle. You represent what they chose to avoid. And when you walk into a room with that mindset, that intensity, that hunger, they feel it, even if you say nothing, especially if you say nothing. Your ambition exposes their complacency. And some people will do anything to dim your light so they don't have to confront their own darkness. You need to guard that ambition like a priceless artifact. Not everyone should hear your goals. Not everyone should know your next move. Not everyone should have access to the vision you're building, because most people aren't ready for it. They're too comfortable, too lazy, too insecure. They'll try to poke holes in your plan, not because they're trying to help, but because your confidence threatens them. And the more you talk about where you're headed, the more they'll find ways to poison the route. Not with logic, not with facts, but with fear, with subtle comments, with passive-aggressive doubt. That sounds risky. Are you sure you can do that? That's a lot to take on, and slowly your momentum bleeds. Your ambition is sacred, and sacred things must be protected. Not explained, not defended, not shared with everyone who asks. You don't need validation. You don't need applause. You need focus. You need a wall between you and people who think small. Because small-minded people operate from fear. Fear of change, fear of challenge, fear of being exposed by someone doing more than them. And they'll mask it as advice, as concern, as love, but it's still fear. And if you let that fear in, even a little bit, it starts to eat away at your belief. It starts to corrupt your urgency. It starts to shrink your vision to fit their limits. You have to be okay with being misunderstood. You have to be okay with people thinking you're arrogant, obsessed, or unrealistic. That's fine. That's the price of being ambitious in a world that rewards mediocrity. Let them talk, let them laugh, let them doubt, but never let them in. Your circle should be airtight. No leaks, no negative voices, no passive losers acting like mentors. If they don't live with fire in their chest every morning, if they don't sacrifice for their future every night, they don't deserve access to your vision. Because ambition is a flame, and small minds are wind. If you don't shield it, they'll blow it out before it ever becomes a wildfire. You don't need to shout your ambition from the rooftops. You don't need to convince anyone. You need to move in silence, build with precision, and arrive so violently prepared that their disbelief shatters the moment they see what you've created. That's how you handle small minds, not by debating them, not by explaining yourself, but by outworking them, outlasting them, and outgrowing them so severely that they become irrelevant to your reality. Guard your ambition because no one else will. People love to celebrate results but hate the grind required to get them. They'll praise you once you've made it, but until then you're a threat. Keep building, keep moving, keep believing in your path so fiercely that their doubt bounces off your purpose like nothing. Protect the fire, let it grow in silence, and when it finally bursts into flame, make sure the only thing left for them to do is watch it burn. Trust is earned, not given. The world has flipped the concept of trust. People now hand it out freely, like it's some gesture of virtue, like it makes them look good to be overly open, but trust was never meant to be given so easily. It's supposed to be earned through patterns, consistency, action, not feelings, not words, not time. Just because you've known someone for years doesn't mean they're worthy of your trust. Just because someone says the right things doesn't mean they move with the right intentions. You don't trust someone because they ask for it. You trust them because they've shown repeatedly that they protect your name when you're not in the room, that they don't fold when things get messy, that they don't leak your story when it's convenient for them. Blind trust is weakness. It's a shortcut that looks noble on the surface but leads to destruction in the long run. Every time you give unearned trust, you give someone a tool to destroy you if they ever choose to use it. And when they do, you're left shocked, but you shouldn't be. Because the signs were always there, you just ignored them in the name of connection or being real or believing in the good in people. But you don't build a strong life by hoping people are good. You build it by making sure only the proven are allowed into your space. That's not paranoia, that's protection. That's wisdom earned through scars. There's a difference between being open and being accessible. Just because someone has a smile and a few compliments doesn't mean they've earned a seat at your table. You need to test people. Watch how they move when you're not benefiting them. See how they react to your success. Pay attention to the language they use when they speak about others, because that's exactly how they'll speak about you once you're not around. Trust is not built in good times. It's revealed in hard ones. When tension hits, when life tests them, when they're given the chance to choose integrity or ease, that's when you'll see who they really are. And if they fail that test even once, believe them. Don't justify it. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't give second chances to snakes and call it growth. That's not loyalty. That's self-sabotage. If you want to move like a leader, if you want to become unshakable, you need to build a circle of people who've earned their place, not because they said the right thing, but because they consistently did the right thing, even when no one was watching. People who didn't flinch when tested.
People who didn't fold when offered opportunity at your expense. People who speak truth even when it's uncomfortable. Trust is rare because real people are rare. And once you find them, you protect them like gold. But until you do, you walk alone with your eyes open, your mind sharp, and your mouth shut. The more you give trust away without testing it, the more you'll find yourself betrayed by the same patterns in different people. The cycle won't break until your standard does. Make people earn access. Make them prove their loyalty. Make them show up when there's nothing to gain. And even then, trust slowly. Because the deeper your mission, the more dangerous misplaced trust becomes. Your vision is too important to be jeopardized by someone who simply hasn't been tested. This is your life, your future, your foundation. Don't hand it to someone who hasn't shown beyond all doubt that they'll protect it like their own. Trust isn't about being closed off. It's about being precise. It's not about fearing people. It's about respecting your journey enough to protect it from the wrong ones. You don't let everyone into the vault. You don't give everyone the blueprint. You don't open the door just because someone knocked loud enough. Make them earn it. Make them show up. Make them prove it over and over again. That's how you keep your life clean. That's how you move without regret. That's how you win. Build alone, speak later. There's a reason the greats disappear before they explode. They vanish. They isolate. They stop talking, stop posting, stop trying to prove anything to anyone because they understand the power of building in silence. When you build alone, you free yourself from distraction. You stop reacting to noise. You stop adjusting your process for applause. It's just you, your craft, your grind, and your next move. That's where clarity is found. That's where power is forged. That's where the real transformation happens, far away from the eyes of people who only show up when it's time to celebrate, but never when it's time to work. Speaking too soon kills momentum. Every time you explain what you're building, you open the door to interference. People's opinions, people's doubts, people's projections, they all start leaking into your process. Suddenly you're questioning the plan you were once confident in. You're modifying your moves to make them more understandable to others. You're shrinking the fire just to keep the room comfortable. And worst of all, you start becoming addicted to talking about the future instead of building it. You spend more time explaining what's coming than executing what matters. That's how dreams die. Not from failure, but from too much talk and not enough action. When you build alone, you give yourself permission to evolve without judgment. You can make mistakes in peace. You can fail without criticism. You can change your mind, try again, experiment, refine without the weight of eyes that don't understand what you're doing. And when you finally speak, you're not speaking from hope, you're speaking from proof. You've done the work, you've walked the path, you've earned the right to say something because your results back it. That's a different kind of voice. It's not loud, it's not desperate, it's calm, grounded, undeniable. Because it doesn't seek approval, it commands respect. The people who talk the most usually build the least. They spend their time looking for recognition instead of mastery. They build brands without building skill. They chase followers before they chase greatness. And when it gets hard, when no one's watching, when the likes stop, they crumble. Because their process was never about progress, it was about being seen. And when the spotlight goes off, so do they. Don't be that person. Don't build for attention. Build because you can't live without the mission. Build because it keeps you alive. Build because it's all that makes sense when everything else feels chaotic. You don't need to tell anyone what you're working on. Let them assume you're doing nothing. Let them forget your name. Let them think you gave up. And then show up one day with results so heavy they can't carry your story even if they tried. That's how you move. That's how you separate yourself from the crowd. Quiet work. Loud outcome. No in between. Keep your vision locked in a vault, and don't open it until the product is untouchable. Don't speak until there's nothing left to explain. Let your presence shake the room because of what you've done, not what you said you would do. Silence is uncomfortable for people who need attention, but for those who are truly building, silence is peace. It's clarity. It's control. You own your process when you build alone. You own your narrative. You don't owe anyone updates, timelines, or previews. You owe results, and those results come from staying locked in, detached from validation, obsessed with the outcome, ruthless with your time, and brutally honest with yourself. Don't get caught up explaining your vision. Just execute it. Don't waste time defending your dream. Just dominate with it. Build alone. Speak later. And when you do finally speak, let it echo so loudly they remember the silence before it came.
You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't owe updates. You don't need applause to stay committed. And you definitely don't need eyes on you to stay disciplined. This game, your journey, your grind, your evolution, isn't about being understood. It's about being undeniable. You don't need to scream your ambition. You don't need to defend your path. You build alone. You grow alone. You bleed in silence. So when it's time to speak, the world listens because the work speaks louder than anything you could have said along the way. And when they finally see what you've built, it's already done. There's no discussion, no debate, no more questions, just results. Heavy results. Results that came from solitude, sacrifice, and silence. Because that's the difference between talkers and doers. Talkers seek validation. Doers become proof. So go build in the dark. Shut your mouth. Protect your mind, guard your vision, and don't say a word until there's nothing left to explain.